right, it's 4 minutes after, so I'm going to guess most of us are here, and I'll continue to let people in as we go. But welcome, very honored to have you today. My name is Patrick Mullins. I'm the Director of Public Works at Virginia Stage Company. Virginia Stage Company is located here on the lands of the Kecoughtan, the Chesapeake, and the Nansemond and peoples of the Powhatan tribes, now known as Hampton Roads. We're honored to have our guests today, and I'll let Philip Odango introduce them in just a moment. But to give a little context, we have two big projects in our Public Works department this summer. Public Works is the full company initiative of Virginia Stage Company to share theater with all people, and not just watching theater, but the tools of making theater, because we believe the tools of making theater are transformational. And so with Public Works, we have wonderful community programs across Hampton Roads. And once a year, we bring all of those communities in an intergenerational, intercultural celebration of making an audacious act of theater. This summer, we have, which is one of the projects I referenced, we have The Earth Remembers, a new musical by Ranve O'Daniel and Javaris Myrick, which tells the history of Hampton Roads from the perspective of the people of the global majority. In that telling, it begins in just before 1619 and comes to contemporary time. In doing so, we were able to spend a lot of time with lots of wonderful people, including some of our friends at the Philippine Cultural Center and other friends across Hampton Roads. And so you'll see highlights of culture in the piece that do center the Filipino cultural experience, as well as the Native American cultural experience. And the writers write from the Black experience. So we're honored to be living in the beautiful melting pot we are. And in addition to the musical, we wanted to have some deeper conversations. And so thanks to Virginia Humanities, they funded this panel discussion and a series of panel discussions called The New Earth. We've already held the Black Theater, History of Black Theater in Hampton Roads panel. Today we're here for this, and moving forward, we'll explore BIPOC training in Hampton Roads, and then eventually the future of arts in Hampton Roads. So thank you so much for joining us, and it's my pleasure to introduce Philip Odango. Philip Odango is ... I could go on for hours, but an amazingly talented human who brings people together, who makes amazing, wonderful cosplay, and is a director and an entrepreneur, and just a maker of all things lovely. And it's our honor to have him to introduce this panel and to facilitate. So Philip, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you so much, Patrick. And thank you all for everyone coming into the panel today, and to our panelists, which I had the pleasure of introducing. Yesterday was also Philippine Independence Day. So this is really an appropriate time for us to kind of take a step back and take a step in and learn more about the different voices of the diverse communities that we have here in Hampton Roads. My name is Philip Odango. I have worked with the Virginia Stage Company as a community engagement coordinator, and I've had the pleasure of working with Patrick on numerous projects at VSC and in the community. And today I have gathered several of the tastemakers, influencers, and creators of Filipino origin here in Hampton Roads to have that conversation about what it means to be a Philippine heritage. How do we create safe spaces for art and community to flourish? And where do we fit in? You know, in the age of Stop Asian Hate, Stop AAPI Hate, where are we in the conversation of social justice and creating better communities and creating a better Earth? So on our panel today, I'd like to introduce briefly, since we're going to be going more into what each of our creators create. I have the pleasure of having Dr. Arlene Fontanarez, MD, on our panel today. Arlene is a first vice chairman on the Council of United Filipino Organizations of Tidewater, and also works with the Philippine Cultural Center School of Creative and Performing Arts, also known as CAPA, the Philippine Rondalla Ensemble of Virginia, also called PRIVA, and the Kuntao Martial Arts. So if we can have we're welcome Dr. Fontaneras to our panel.
Thank you.
Next, we have longtime friend and theater maker in the area, Eddie Castillo. Eddie is the Associate Artistic Director and Training Leader of Core Theater Ensemble.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
Next, I'd like to welcome Catherine Stevens. She is an educator, an artist, a cosplayer, and she is also the co-host of the Show Pow Show with the Nerds of Color, and also Keeping It Creepy with Cherry and Cat, a horror podcast. So please welcome Catherine Stevens.
Glad to be here, thanks.
Next, we have Vicente, or Vic Yap. He is a phenomenal contemporary artist, a painter, a sculptor, a graphic designer, and a just fantastic mentor to aspiring artists. Please welcome Vic.
Hi, everyone. Hello.
Last but not least, we have Christina Rhodes. She is a cosplayer, a co-host of the Show Pow Show. She is a famous TikToker and also a stuffy restoration specialist. Please welcome Christina Rhodes.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Capamilia, so we are here today to talk about identity and how that influences our creation of art. I'd like to start off opening the discussion with, what about your Filipino heritage? Or maybe we could talk a little bit more about what is your Filipino heritage? How do you identify, and what does that heritage mean to you? Let's start with Vic.
Okay. Well, a little background. I come from Cebu. For those of you who do not know, that's in the middle of the Philippines. Can you hear me all right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I come from Cebu. I finished arts in University of the Philippines. And in Cebu, the art scene is basically a lot of landscape. The Philippines was enjoying a lot of the views around, and people appreciate that, and they share that in the beauty. And there's not much like in like Western art, it's mostly like their ideals and stuff. And a lot of the Philippine art that I came to know in the Philippines is about what is and not what people want in the like an ideal. So it's just representing the reality of the situations. You can see stuff like current events, or situational things like vendors or whatever, everyday life. It's living in the present. So a lot of the things that I see around here are like representing like ideals or what could be, what people want in life. That's good because we get to share with that. And then I like the fact that also maybe the Filipino art that I grew up with could be also seen like the current. I'd like to see more of that too, especially in the Filipino community. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. And we'll be looking at some of your art shortly as well. All right, I'm gonna pass the mic to Christina Rhodes. Tell us more about how you identify your Filipino heritage and what does that mean to you?
So I am a mestiza Filipina from the Hampton Roads area. I was born and raised. My mom came to the US through adoption and the new US Navy sometime in the 70s. My parents are high school sweethearts, and they raised a beautiful family here in Hampton Roads. I really grew up with a lot of Filipino aunties and uncles all around. And I'd say for me, my Filipino heritage it means the most to me in that it provides that family. It's a family beyond your blood family, and it's that sense of community and it's that sense of security. I think that's something that I always associate the hospitality of a Filipino family and of having that.
That's great. I think family is definitely a theme that is very pervasive and throughout the Philippine culture. And I'm sure we'll be able to see more of that in the upcoming musical that Virginia Stage Company is putting together. All right, let's talk to Eddie. Eddie, how do you identify in terms of Philippine heritage, and what does that mean to you?
I definitely identify as Filipino American. My father is from Cavite City and my mother is from Manila, but they both met in Chicago. Uh, Typical Filipino American family being created in Hampton Roads was my father was in the Navy, my mother was a nurse. They met in Chicago. He last got stationed in Hampton Roads over in Virginia Beach, retired from the Navy, and then directly went into the Postal Service. And it's actually a shared story that a lot of Filipinos that I know have that same connection. Growing up Filipino, there's a huge Filipino community that we were deep inside of, and very encouraging. All of the aunties and uncles growing up were there pretty much every weekend. We were there at their houses, we were there at our houses, and really encouraging in the arts and performance. So I learned a lot about performance just by being around that group of people. So yeah, that's where I'm coming from.
That's great. And I think that diaspora is definitely something that, we find that creates that non-monolithic experience where it's easy to just kind of lump the Philippine experience into this one immigration story. But like you said, like your family, your parents met in Chicago, and that presents a whole different, Filipino experience coming into Hampton Roads as well. Now let's talk to Catherine. Catherine, you have an experience that's a little bit different.
I do actually. So I am also mestiza. I am half Filipino, but I did not grow up with any connection whatsoever to my Filipino side. I grew up with my mother's side, who are Southern, white, Scotch Irish, straight through. So I had very little connection with what it meant to be a person of color, except for my own sort of jarring personal experiences until I was much older. And so for me, my Filipino heritage has been a lot about exploration and research, almost academic, because I don't have that first person cultural currency. But it's been something that I think has grown alongside me.
I think that's an SAT word there, cultural currency. I'm gonna write that down. That sounds smart. Yeah, can you talk a little bit more about that cultural currency? Because I think that's something that maybe we can explore as we're talking about the creation of art.
Sure. So I think that a lot of Filipinos being involved with the Show Pow Show in part has been a way to just kind of discuss what Filipino experiences exist when there is that sort of assumption of, oh, your mom was a nurse and, the post office, the Navy, Hampton Roads. Like there's a lot of things that sort of come up as reoccurring themes. But even within those sort of story beats, there's so much experience that you might have that kind of puts you on the same level. And I think that being able to speak as a representative, I am Filipino, I can speak as to the community, I'm a good representative. A lot of people experience imposter syndrome. And I think that we have a tendency to weigh how much Filipino is your Filipino? How Filipino are you? How can you prove it? What's your, part of the what's your background, where your parents from is sort of a way almost to weigh your worth in whatever measure that we're deciding to use.
Wow, yeah. I think that's definitely the measurement of worth and identity and where do we fit in, all of that, I think is somehow a theme that sometimes impacts the way we create art for ourselves, and also to have visibility
Absolutely.
as well. And speaking of someone who has worked in creating visibility and opportunities for artists of all ages, we have Dr. Arlene Fontaneras, medical doctor. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, how we went from right side, left side brain situation. So Dr. Fontaneras, thank you for joining us. And can you tell us a little bit more about your Philippine heritage story and how you identify and what that means to you?
So I am Filipina, born and raised here in Hampton Roads to two Filipino immigrants. My parents got married in the Philippines, and like most of the Filipinos in this area, my father was military in the Coast Guard, brought his wife here, and they had a family, and they stayed. I've had the privilege of growing up here in Hampton Roads in a huge Filipino community. And growing up in this community, I was witness to part of the whole evolution of the development of various Filipino organizations that came about from the necessity of needing comradeship, friendship, socialization, childcare, identity, just someone to hang around with. And eventually all these different organizations, whether they were regional or had some, language commonality, eventually they all have come together in what has become a culmination of what we call the Council of United Filipino Organizations of Tidewater, where we all try to function under this big umbrella as one large community. And the major project of QFOT has been to build the Philippine Cultural Center here in Virginia Beach on Baxter Road, which we consider to be our home away from home, where all things cultural come together, at least as far as not just meeting each other, but educating our children in a formal way. So we have 3 different cultural programs, which I'm sure we'll talk about later on, but it has been a privilege to grow up in this community and to come back and serve this community, because these are the people who really made me who I am. All the aunties and the uncles, my godparents, all the mentors who instilled all those typical Filipino values of education, family, religion, all our traditions. These are the people who gave me the confidence to grow up, go away, be educated, become a doctor, and come back really to serve this community. And although it's taken a little while for me to finally get married, have kids, and get settled myself, really the older generation that built the PCC for us, as they are getting older, those responsibilities have been passed on to my generation, which is how I've now become the vice chairman of the council. I'm fortunate in that I met a Filipino in residency, a physician who was not connected to a Filipino community up in Delaware. There were very few Filipinos up there where he grew up. So he always joked, I can't date her. It's like dating my sister. But we did get married, and we have 2 sons who are 18 and now 20. And because we've had such a strong Filipino community here at PCC, the Philippine Cultural Center, my children have always been involved in all the cultural programs. And so they're very comfortable with their heritage and are very proud of who they are. And I'm proud that they're proud of that, because they're very comfortable with it. And now, even as they move on to the next step, at university, they are eager to be involved and to continue that interest, or even to help introduce or familiarize those who didn't have that special connection. So I feel like I've done my job.
Thank you. And you're still doing it.
I'm still doing it, yes.
Yeah, there's more to be done. So I think that that's a good segue to talk a little bit about how the PCC and its programs, and I know this is a lot for all of us as well as creators and artists, how we've had to shift the creation of art and what we do during the pandemic. And I know that the PCC physically closed, in light of COVID, but it also transitioned to an online space. So let's start with Dr. Fontaneris and just talk a little bit more about the programs that you work with in creating opportunities for art and culture.
So we have been limited in that we haven't been able to gather, but we're fortunate to have leaders for each of the 3 cultural programs that have tried to stay engaged with the children, whether it be Zoom. We were able to a couple of times actually gather socially distanced to, for instance, last July, our Priva, or our Rondalia guitar group, came together to create a message, a video to promote mask wearing and just being safe for the Filipino community. So it was a lot of fun. We took the little jingle. There's an old San Miguel beer commercial from way back when. My sons rewrote the words to basically "Magmask muna tayo," which means let's all wear a mask for now. And so it's been posted on our website, and we've tried to share that with the community. Our Scapa group, the folk dance group, does try to have lessons on our usual Saturday mornings, and they're trying to maintain those dance skills. Quintal as well, which is our martial arts group, they're a smaller group, and they have been able to gather because they are a smaller group. But they've been active for probably a good part of the pandemic. So yesterday, which was Philippine Independence Day, we were asked by the city of Virginia Beach to perform in one of the pop-up concerts at the gazebo outdoors on Kempsville Road and Witch Duck Road. And we actually had all 3 groups rehearse together to put together a 30-minute performance. So each group, they rehearsed on their own, and then we pulled it together outdoors. Unfortunately, the rain got in the way, so we weren't able to perform, but we had a dress rehearsal on Friday. It was fabulous. So we know we can pull it off on one day when we're going to be rescheduled, hopefully in the near future. But our cultural program leaders have been trying really hard to keep the kids engaged. So we've been grateful for that.
I have 3 images pulled up on my screen. Patrick, if we can switch to that view. So hopefully this is coming up in the screen share, but I have a group photo, and then you've got some lovely ladies in pink with what I believe are Filipino guitars, and then you've got a martial arts group. Can you tell us a little bit more about the age ranges and how KUFOT and PCC connect and reach out to these younger generations?
Sure. So SCAPA is our School of Creative and Performing Arts, basically our folk dance group, which it involves children as young as 3. If you can stand on your feet and you can have balance enough to move left and right, our children start learning the cultural folk dances from a very young age. Obviously, as they get a little more mature with a little more motor skills, then they are able to learn the tinikling and the much more advanced dances. Typically, we have every Saturday lessons, or we should say SCAPA class. So it involves learning some culture, a little bit of language, learning a little bit of history, and then they break out and learn dances. When there are programs that we are invited to, cultural programs, then they will learn dances and with the goal of putting together a performance. These children usually will hang out with us until they graduate from high school. Some of them, if they are still local at college, we still can rein them in and recruit them to fill in. So they're very loyal, and it is a special friend group. They were so excited the other day to be able to come together. They were craving that connectedness. So it's really a special bond. Same with the Filipino Andalia Ensemble of Virginia. So this group, again, if you are able to pick up a guitar and strum 14 strings, then we'll teach you. These children do not have to have previous musical experience. We have dedicated teachers who themselves learn how to play the guitars, the bandurias, in elementary school in the Philippines, and are here to share that with the children. So they don't even use traditional music notes. They use the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti system, and there's no timing. They learn it by ear. So they'll listen to the song and they will follow the conductor's timing, and they learn a lot of the Filipino cultural songs. They are now the live accompaniment for Scapa, which is really fun. These children, again, range from 6 to high school. Again, if they're still around, after they graduate from high school, we still have a couple of students who are hanging out with us. The little children start out with percussion instruments, and when they're old enough to be able to hold that guitar, they don't even have to reach the floor of this chair they're sitting on, but whenever they're able to grab the guitar and start strumming, we are ready to have them join the ensemble. Quintel Martial Arts is led by some individuals who are trained in Quintel Martial Arts. They not only are in tournaments and demonstrate their form, they actually perform with us and have joined in to the tinikling dance, which makes it very entertaining because they have their sticks as they hop in and out of the tinikling poles. So we are able to incorporate them as well in a lot of the cultural programs that we're invited to. So the last time we performed was over a year ago at the Brooklyn Manila Project in January at the Sandler Center. All 3 of our groups were invited, so they all performed together on stage. And that was the last time that the 3 cultural youth programs were able to perform together. And now that things are opening up with the pandemic, as we're getting over that, they are really excited to get together again. And we are recruiting students at all times to join our groups.
That's fantastic. And just the immersion of these students who come from all kinds of elementary through high school and above, coming from the Hampton Roads area to learn and appreciate their culture. It must be a very inspiring, avenue, especially for those who might not have a direct connection to the Philippine culture, and want to learn more. And also, Virginia Sage Company benefited from the artistic creations over at the Philippine Cultural Center and SCAPA, with the involvement of its students and dancers with the Tempest. So that was a very exciting production. Let me see if I can fast forward through my slides really quick, because I know I do have some photos. Oh, here it is. Some photos from rehearsals during the Tempest, which was directed by Patrick Mullins. And it was a really wonderful opportunity to see those students in action. Let's talk to another educator. Let's talk to Kat Stevens. Kat, you're a drama coach. You were a drama coach, and and participated in the creation of art. So it must have been interesting on that side to see kind of like the students, feeling inspired and wanting to create, something new and awesome and involved. How has your experience been as a drama coach, and did you have any opportunities to infuse any of the Philippine culture, or maybe is there a desire to?
There's definitely the desire to. So I think that mostly what I sort of learned, because as I said, I didn't really grow up surrounded by traditional Filipino culture. Instead, it was more of I brought kind of the openness and the desire to learn. And so one thing that I implemented while I was working as a public school teacher was, and as a drama coach, was to try and put on a student performance festival in the spring. And so we would specifically sit down with the kids and try to find out, what do you want to do? What is it that's important to you? And one of the more successful avenues from that is that I did have a 4-year run of independently student written ASL skits that they completely put together, wrote from scratch, and dedicated that every year, and actually brought some students over from the local deaf programs to watch the performance as well. And so I think more so than just injecting my Filipino culture or my Filipino experience into a population of a school, where the school that I taught at did not have a very large Filipino population. It was more of a, let me encourage you to explore your culture and your interests and your unconventional theater approaches, because that just was not something that I ever saw in my experiences in high school, college, and community growing up.
And that probably leans into a little bit more of what you and Christina do with the Show Pal show, and is that exploration of culture. And let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about that, and why the show was created, and what you've kind of experienced before, because you've already had how many episodes? It's quite a few.
Oh, over 50. Yeah.
Over 50
I think we're just
episodes.
about 50. Yeah.
And they can find this on Spotify and Apple, I believe.
Yes,
on
so
Apple.
we have the full shows up on YouTube, but we also release a podcast version that you can listen to wherever podcasts are streamed, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the reason why the show was created, and what what your experience has been so far?
Absolutely. So during the pandemic, everything kind of was at a freeze. Obviously, there weren't any drama performances that we could put on. We weren't actively working in performance spaces at the time, neither myself nor Patrick, nor Tina. And so we were sort of discussing not only the fact that we missed being able to put something out into the community, but also the fact that there was just so little Filipino content. And there was just so little access to Filipino culture and what we considered important to us. And Patrick Strange kind of came up, who's our showrunner and our co-host, kind of came up with the concept and brought it to us. And what we do is we try to find Filipino experiences and stories and present them to the world at large, to show the different experiences of the Filipino diaspora. We talk to performers, we talk to big names, we've talked to Dante Bosco, we've talked to people that are recognizable on TV, but we also love to talk to just the everyday person. We love to talk to, anyone who has a Filipino story to tell is worth listening to. And I think that that's kind of the shift that we were starting to really focus on during the pandemic, that there's no reason for us to try to wait for scraps at the table of performance when we can kind of build our own table.
Oh, that's powerful right there. I mean, even though Filipino is probably known for taking all those scraps and making a wonderful stew out of it, but the idea that we don't necessarily need permission either, or validation from others to exist. We can create that, and we'll touch base a little bit more on the Show Pal show when we talk to Christina as well. but I want to bring in this keeping it creepy. Now, this is an interesting kind of like, it's a little bit different. It's a different kind of podcast. Tell us more about what it is and why you created it.
So something that I kind of noticed on TikTok after I started creating a little bit is that someone was talking about how if you are a creator, a POC creator in a media space, no matter how innocuous your beginnings, it will always become political. Our existence is political. And that's kind of what happened with Keeping It Creepy. So a friend of mine, Cerise, who is Black, the two of us decided to set up Keeping It Creepy with Cherry and Kat so that we could just discuss horror media. We said that, there just aren't a lot of people who sit down to discuss horror, what makes things scary, what makes horror appealing as a genre, who are women, and in particular, who are women of color. And even though we sort of started with a very like lighthearted interest, we found that it is very difficult to kind of discuss anything as a person of color without bringing in your own background and experiences. And so it has become much more feminist and much more focused on I guess the POC experiences of horror and how it applies to our culture at large. And we've been doing that for about 3 seasons now. So it's been a really great process of kind of finding our voices and finding our audiences.
That's fantastic, and we can find that on Spotify.
Yes,
and
Spotify,
Apple.
Google
Yep.
Podcasts, iTunes. Yes.
Great. And all of these links we can put into the chat at the end so that all of those joining will get the opportunity to check it out as well. I want to talk to a master of horror himself and someone who has created some fantastic experiences in the world of Edgar Allan Poe and some really mindful interactive experiences in Hampton Roads. We've got theater producer Edwin Castillo. Let me find your slide here. Eddie, you have been the Associate District Director and training leader of Core Theater Ensemble for over 10 years now?
That's correct, yeah.
How many years? Yeah.
I believe about 13, 14 years. Yeah, we've been around since 2006, 2007. And we created this theater company between myself, Ml Ertugrul, and Laura Agadello, Nancy Dickerson, going off of what was just said before, this idea of not having to fight for scraps, but creating your own space. That was something that we always thought of, that I was fortunate enough to go through my education at ODU and also some summer stock theaters up in New England, Massachusetts, New York State also, where as a theater artist, as an actor, I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to play a lot of different roles. I didn't feel pigeonholed at any point during that time of my life. Once I got out of, when I was done with ODU and I started auditioning for things, I kind of felt like there wasn't as many opportunities as I had when I was in an educational environment. So coming off of that, we decided, hey, why don't we just create our own stuff? So why don't we just create our own theater company? And we did that. And also, there's no actual handbook or step-by-step way of doing that. So it was a discovery along the way. Even to this day, we're figuring things out. It's a lot easier now, but figuring it out as a theater company and deciding which projects to go from month to month is very liberating and scary at the same time. We started off with adaptations of Edgar Allan Poe because that was just a shared obsession between most of us, where we took Edgar Allan Poe's short stories and poems and translated it to the stage as an experience. And from there, we also took short stories that a lot of us were familiar with. One of our pieces that a lot of people know from this area is the yellow wallpaper, which we've actually successfully toured to a couple of different countries as well. Creating this theater company has allowed us to really blossom, I think, artistically, because we've had the wonderful opportunities to tour to different countries, to different theater festivals, and share our art with other countries, and also the other artists that we meet along the way. They get to share their art with us as well.
Yeah, there's a running theme, I think, as a casual observer of you and the core theater ensemble's work, is that there is this theme of the other, whether it's in Edgar Allan Poe or in Frankenstein, or just the creation of the other and the experiencing of what the other is. Have you, as a performer, like felt that there just weren't enough roles or enough opportunities on the table or being offered to you, or have looked for, that was inclusive of your heritage, and that perhaps there was that kind of need to, not fight for scraps, but create something?
That's a great question. I really feel like there's uh, I've come to this realization that you have to make your own opportunities. There's plenty of opportunities out there, and there will be a lot of doors shut in your face. But that's not to say that you can't create your own door sometimes, and then open that door right up and leave it open for the next person behind you. Sometimes if that door is closed, create another door. And I feel that that's something that I really feel deeply. That that, yeah, because I've had the blessing and luck of that happening to me. I I want to share that with other people as well. What that means is that we've over the years, these theater festivals that we've been able to go to, uh, they just piggyback off of each other. Once you go to a theater festival and see someone's art, they invite you to their own theater festival. So we get together their country. And we've actually reciprocated that in bringing a couple of our friends from Italy and Lithuania to perform here in Hampton Roads as well.
Mhm.
So, um, so yeah, I believe strongly in just create your own opportunity. Uh, if you don't, if you don't get, if there's something that you want, there's going to be a way to get to it. And I don't want a shut door to get in the way. You just go around it or create another door.
Yeah, I believe that was Milton Berle who said something along the lines, if opportunity doesn't knock, build a door. And I feel like, folks like folks like you and what Arlene has done, with Kufat and building many multiple doors. Some of those doors have 14 strings on it. Are great indicators, and similar to what Kat says about, building that table, building a longer table, I think is an important aspect. I think probably indicative of the kind of a Philippine cultural value of perseverance. I think, there's many ways to kind of get to the solution, but sometimes you have to work twice as hard to get half as little, just to get to the middle. Um, and so I want to talk a little bit more with Vic here, who is our painter, graphic designer, sculptor. Vic, you were talking about earlier how, growing up, you saw a lot of, the political, the everyday life that has kind of influenced you. Can you talk to us more about the work that you do here now in Hampton Roads? And
Um,
yeah.
okay, so I want to go back to what Eddie has mentioned.
Mhm.
That opening your own door, that is a very Filipino concept, and that is exactly what we've been practicing back home when I was there, because you don't get opportunities much. You either make your own or someone, which is difficult sometimes when you're you just have ideas and you want to do things. But in the Filipino, it's very like family oriented, but that's a good thing. But there's also a bad thing to that, because they only include whoever is part of their family. So there's that. So you create opportunities for yourself to be heard, to be seen, to perform, as most of you are performers. So there's that. So you persevere and make your own opportunities. Okay, so in the Philippines, I founded this group called the Nomad, which is, the Lumad means like you're a native of a place, and then nomad is you wander around. As you know, Philippines is like a big place with different islands and stuff. So what we do is like we travel around the Philippines, try to experience different cultures in the Philippines. Like there's active Muslim community in the Philippines, like very active. And then there's like the native Ifugaos and all that. And also like even just in the province where I was at, in the Visayas, it's the middle part. So there's also different cultures and things that you can learn. Along the way, we shared the experience with the people. I don't know if, can you, Philip, can they see the, so, okay, you can see the picture of some of my works. At the bottom, you can see the jeepney thing. I don't know, any of you has ridden an actual jeepney, but it's a very interesting experience. Early in the morning, people use that in the Philippines to like get places. It's like a bus, but tighter, like a sardine can. So everybody's like packed together. So you get people that are going home, you get people that are just coming out of the house. So it's a very interesting experience. In Virginia, when I came here, like over a decade ago with my family, there was a lack of that. Like in the Philippines, there was a lot of awareness of, we tried to make our own art. We tried to present ourselves, but in Virginia, it's not so much as I can see. Like I can see what they're doing, the performing arts. That's very good. I'm very proud of that. So Philippine art is greatly like connected to religion. So coming to Virginia, my art has been focused more on going with a religious aspect of it. Like in the middle, you can see that's my Lorenzo Ruiz for the Lorenzo Ruiz Center. I did that a while ago. So there, in Virginia, it's been limited to the art need as far as painting and stuff like that has been limited to like the religious aspect of it. I would like to see more. Like now that I've met all of you, I know that there's a lot more going on. So that it's good that I know that now. So yeah, it's actually very expansive, more than I thought that it would be.
Yeah, so the idea of the creation of art based on like the Philippine experience,
Yeah,
the religion,
exactly. Yeah.
and all of that. Where do you see yourself taking your art and your creative expressions like into the future?
Right now, I would just like to, like a lot of young people like Catherine and I can see her name, Christina. They haven't have a direct experience with living in the Philippines. Perhaps we could show them how it is, the difference, and then the similarities, and then the mindset of the people. Like Eddie might have been born here, but he's doing it like the Filipino way, like just make your own opportunities, like go for it. Yeah, that's the way. That's how Filipinos survive. We're very resilient, and we make our own opportunities when we find none that are opened for us. So yeah, that's encourage people to take the values that we have as a culture, as the Filipino culture, and just use that, because a lot of young people are kind of have lost their identity, I guess. They don't know where they could belong, or is it the right way, or should they be just part of this like subculture? Like I
Mhm.
see a lot of young people trying to be black, but that's, you got your own, man.
Yeah, I think there's like this fusion of because we live in a melting pot. You know,
Yeah,
Hampton Roads is
yeah.
such a melting pot of different cultures, different values, different populations. I mean, just
Mm-hmm.
being in the military town, you know, we see all kinds of, you know, influences
Mm-hmm.
and allyship that we create. You know, shout out to our friends over at BlurredCon. You
Mm.
know, we Black Nerd Con that
Okay,
is
yeah.
happening in July. So we've got like lots of you know, wonderful people that you know, influence, aspire, inspire us. And I want to talk to now to Christina because she's got um, you know, kind of an interesting origin story with what her art form is right now, and it's really taking off. Christina, what's up? All right, stuffy restoration specialist. That's something you don't find on Indeed often.
So I love this thread of that we're following of creating opportunities or seizing opportunities that that arrive. So during the pandemic, it really kind of came at a crossroads for me in my life. With I lost my mother at the beginning of the pandemic and kind of used that time to cope, along with just the upheaval of life that the pandemic was. Um, and in that, I discovered TikTok. And one of the things that I started doing to as a comfort to me was restoring stuffed animals. So this bear was my mother's, and he needed some repairs, some cleaning, and I shared that process on TikTok. And I was like, wow, this is really comforting in a way where I'm sewing, I'm washing, I'm doing these repairs, and I'm being able to share it with people. Um, One thing led to another. I was asked by a friend to restore their bear, and it went viral on social media. Um,
And I think I might have the video on here. I think, can you see Tina's page? Is it
mhm.
okay? So I think where is that? The one that has like 5 million views, something like that.
Oh my goodness.
Meet
Teddy's
Teddy. Teddy is almost 30 years old and in surprisingly great condition, but there's still lots we can do to pamper this beloved bear. So let's take out his foam blend stuffing and each of his individually stuffed toes. I love them so much. Before we can get him into the bath, his person Amber had a special request. Years ago, she tried to give him a heart, so I'm gonna make that happen for her. We wanted to cover up his red paint stain with a permanent reminder of love, starting with an outline and filling it with satin stitching. A few allergy attacks later, he was ready for his soak in the spa. And next up, you'll see just how badly he needed it.
All right, so I think
Teddy.
the part two, right? Oh wait, here's the
Right.
reveal. Wait, here's the
I
reveal.
finished up Teddy's restoration with the most important part. His new heart is filled with old memories, threads, and stuffing from his body, head, and toes. After he was fully stuffed with a custom blend of memory foam and polyfill, I placed it in his paw for his person Amber to squeeze. Then I closed him up and was so proud of how he turned out. Time to finish up Teddy's
You just can't help but smile when you're seeing that, because it's a it's a restoration of childhood. It's compassionate crafting. It's all of these elements that that we love as Filipinos. Is that first of all, Philippine TV dramas, we love that. But second of all, it's this idea of connecting with family and connecting with your loved ones, and the importance of holding on to that. Can you tell us more about kind of, you started that, it kind of blew up, and now you have a backlog?
Oh my goodness. So, you hear stuffed animal restoration artist and we're like, what in the world? And it's preserving those memories. It's taking, some things that are, some are passed down, some are precious, priceless items, and giving them a new life and letting them last longer to provide that comfort. Um, and I did not realize just how needed this service was. And I think the pandemic had a lot to do with that, where, like myself, people were reaching for things that brought them comfort. And if it's, in the form of a beloved teddy bear, they want to be able to keep that forever. So now I have a backlog. I have a wait list out until 2022, and many more, many more stuffed animals that are waiting to meet me, to come into the stuffy spa and get restored.
And the stuffy spot is here in Hampton Roads.
Yep, located here in Hampton Roads. And that was just, it's totally unexpected, but just something that allowed me to really to use my art, which is sewing and crafting. And me and Philip, we have met through Comic Cons and through cosplay and through sewing costumes and things like that. And being able to use just the wealth of experience and the skills that I've learned and developed through those years of creating costumes, to be able to apply them to stuffed toys, dolls, toys, stuffed animals, everything.
That's fantastic. And what's great about that is that it's also it's part of that inspiring the next generation, right? Like you're bridging generations, like the story that you talked about your mother, who's adopted, right,
Mhm.
from the Philippines. And
Yeah.
so like that's another story, right, of the Philippine experience of arriving in America via marriage or adoption. And so I know that one of the things that we've talked about before, and someone mentioned it earlier, is what is Filipino? Are you Filipino enough? And sometimes we're in that position of like ethnically ambiguous,
Yeah.
right? Like
Mhm.
multi-ethnic, like what, it's not specifically Filipino, but it's like there's this concept of passing, right?
Mhm.
Oh, well, she passes for white, or she passes for Filipino, or she's not enough of either. And I know that you and Catherine are the ates of the Show Pal show. And we talked to Catherine earlier, talking about, look, you guys are in so many episodes now. You've had some big names, on the show, and I think there's a little bird told me you might have Dave Bautista at some point.
Wait,
You
one
know,
day.
maybe. Yeah, we can get him on the show. Yeah, and so he's also someone where someone might not look at him and be like, oh yeah, he's Filipino. Like he's not Filipino enough. Or even hip hop artist Sweetie.
Mhm.
She's a half black, half Filipino. Like, and I love watching her TikToks and her videos of her eating sinigang and like immersion with her mother and all of that. How has being on the Show Pao show, being an ate on the Show Pao show, and a co-host, like, how has that influenced your kind of perception of the Philippine American experience or Philippine experience? How has that changed you?
Well, definitely, I think with this past year, having gotten um, a lot of attention on TikTok very quickly through doing stuffed animal restorations. One thing that I've always wanted to highlight through cosplay, through TikTok, through Instagram, through any social media platform that I employed, is that being Filipino is a part of who I am. And I know Kat mentioned earlier about how, despite the diversity in our experiences and even just our own familial experiences, we're not a monolith, and everyone has a different story. So being a part of the Show Pow Show has really helped me kind of confront that imposter syndrome of feeling that I'm not enough. And I love the difference between me and Kat, and being able to kind of compare our experiences, where we're both mestiza, we're both half Filipino. Um, I was able to grow up with Filipino family and she wasn't. And then us still coming together and kind of discovering our culture together, um, through the stories of so many other Filipinos.
Mhm.
And it's just been very, it's brought me so much pride and just hearing all the different stories and all the different people that we get to meet, and hearing about everyone's struggles and everyone's overcoming, and creating these spaces, um, creating the spaces that we have and seizing the opportunities, which I agree is a very Filipino perseverance, very Filipino trait. And I love it when Edwin was sharing his story and he's like, they're encouraging of the arts, and something that sometimes when we do interviews, like we don't always hear that um, the arts are encouraged. So that was really awesome to hear. And I'd love to talk to you more on the Show Pal Show, but with creating the doors and everything like that. It's awesome.
Going out into the woods, finding the wood,
Mhm.
chopping down a tree, making a door.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely, part of that is that perseverance, the idea that, it's like seeing a forest, but also seeing what you can make out of that, right? It's like, what can you do? What can you create? What opportunities can you build? What doors can you open for other people? And for me, I think I made a slide for myself. I forgot to introduce myself.
That's something.
So for me, I just love I've always found myself to be an artist, but also like a teaching artist, like creating opportunities for people to learn. I mean, as much as I'd love to just create something and hand it to someone, there is that, spirit of collaboration and spirit of being able to leave behind knowledge and wisdom to help empower. It's always been attractive to me. So as Patrick Mullins introduced me, it's Filipinango ... Whatever it is, cosplay, sewing, community engagement, investing in cryptocurrency right now, like all kinds of different things. I've always been I've always had this idea of this American dream, and I'm 38 years old, but I was born in the Philippines, and I came to the U.S. when I was 2, and through San Diego military port, ended up in Norfolk, Virginia. But that experience of being an immigrant, really shaped who I am and how I see the world, because I came into the United States naturalized here, but I didn't speak English. So I learned through English as a second language, but I also learned to unpack a lot of self-hate, growing up, because I saw all the people around me. I always got that Walmart question, "What are you?" And that was always been, bothersome to me, like from a young age, because of what I identified as. I identified as an immigrant. I identified as the other. I identified as not belonging here. So that idea of belonging meant that I needed to have white skin. I needed to lose my, Tagalog Filipino accent. I needed to, the quirks, the fresh off the boat mannerisms and language, the hard Tagalog Filipino English, Taglish, there's a lot of that for me growing up in the formation of, here I am, an immigrant child. I can be whoever I want. I can create whomever I want to be. And I found that both limiting and opportunistic. Limiting because of these limiting thoughts of that I needed to be white in order to be successful. Like, I didn't pass, or anything. Both my parents were Filipino, but I didn't have the privilege to immediately get what I want when I saw all of my white friends succeeding. So for me, it's always been, it had been a struggle of, well, I need to do twice, as much, three times as much. I need to put in my effort, stand out in different ways, but most importantly, to just do it and try. And I think that's what really inspired me in exploring diverse different forms of art, whether it's creating theater or creating costumes. But what I've gained the most out of it is truly the spirit of collaboration. And I'm very fortunate to have collaborated with all of you on this panel in various forms. And Arlene was talking a little bit more about Filipino martial arts. And so I've had opportunity to work with both Tina and Kat on a little Filipino martial arts piece with some costumes I've designed. And I actually have a clip of it here, so we can get to see them in action.
Victory. The throne is mine, Jinx. Oh yes, dear sister. Victory. But not yours.
It was just a little outside experience I had. But yeah, I have that opportunity to work with both Kat and Tina on this project. As you can see, I've built the kind of costumes for them, which is traditional Filipino silhouette. And so it was inspired by just a short passage from a C.S. Lewis book, but also kind of bringing it to life infused with some Filipino fashion design and also some martial arts. And then we shot it over at The Hague. And to me, that was a really fun collaboration. And another collaboration that I worked on here was with Arlene and Vic, where with Operation Smile, and these are just two photos because I want you all to come to the Operation Smile building to experience the jeepney for yourself. And what was wonderful is that over this past year, starting in February, Dr. Fontaneras, Dr. Romero, Vic, and Ludwig Osario, and students from our Philippine Cultural Center came together and designed and painted this beautiful jeepney, the Philippine jeepney, that you all will get to experience at the Operation Smile global headquarters in Virginia Beach. And you will see vignettes, photos, experiences of Philippine cultural life that Vic was talking about. And also, this was a wonderful way for the students to engage during the pandemic and be able to create those cultural connections. So I'm keeping the final product from here so that you all can experience it for yourself. And it's a full-size jeepney too. And I think it's the only one in Virginia that exists like this. So we're really excited to see everyone enjoy and benefit from that. So I think for me, it's always been that spirit of collaboration. And Dr. Fontaneros, you want to talk a little bit more about how the students benefited from a collaborative experience like that?
Yeah, so we had these 3 cultural programs with the dance and the guitars and the martial arts. And I realized that our children really are more entrenched than into the arts. I guess it's in our blood as Filipinos, but I had in mind a handful of kids who are artists. They enjoy painting, they enjoy sketching. And so, for instance, we'd be at rehearsals. I had one child who, between takes or between sessions of practice, she'd be sketching in her notebook. And so there are children who love to paint and sketch. And, it's another form of art that I would very much like to develop at our cultural center so that children have another way of expressing themselves. So that was delightful. They really enjoyed it. Of course, we had wonderful leaders in Vic and Ludwig to inspire them. So I'm glad we have them as teachers and examples to hopefully lead that next part of our cultural development at the PCC. We also, as Eddie was talking about opening doors for ourselves, and Vic was also, had comments to make about opening doors for ourselves. We are trying to figure out a way to extend our cultural programs outside the walls of PCC. So, things like we've had in the past a fundraiser called Taste of Art, where we invited local Filipino artists that we knew of to come and display their works of art. And it was, a little wine and sampling of Filipino food. And it was a fundraising event that we did for a few years and are hoping to revitalize that. But that's just, one of the ways where we would like to be able to show another side of our Filipino artistic abilities. So we are trying to be creative and not keeping ourselves corralled into the 4 walls of the PCC, but trying to figure out other ways that our young people can express themselves and express their Filipino pride. Even things like involving the community at large in understanding our history. So one project that we had in mind, again, we weren't able to pull off because of the pandemic. We wanted to do a Bataan March to commemorate the Bataan March and sort of turn it into a fundraising run for everybody in Hampton Roads. So they would learn a little bit about, our history and have a little fun, little physical fitness alongside that. So lots of ideas in our head. And again, a pleasure to meet other collaborators who hopefully can join us and develop more programs and to use your talents and come together and share what we know as our Filipino pride with everyone here and beyond. It's really exciting, and I really, really look forward to being able to work with all of you.
I think you've got a great group of people here that kind of exemplify that multi-hyphenate way that Filipinos, tend to be. It's the ... the ellipses, the and. Yeah, and so I think that's kind of perhaps it kind of answers my initial question of where do Filipinos kind of fit in. because sometimes what I think about personally is kind of like the generalizations that all Asians are the same, right? Like that, that the classifications are like the Koreans own the hair salons or the hair stores. The Vietnamese have the nail spas. The Japanese have the hibachis. The Chinese have Chinese restaurants. What do Filipinos have, right? And so sometimes I think about that, and I think about exactly what Dr. Fontaneros is talking about is that, we're not keeping ourselves corralled into any one particular box. That yes, we have that, and we have that, and we have that, and we have that. And that if we don't have it, we build it. We build the doors to get to that and more. I like the idea of that, that we choose not to fight for the scraps because we know that we have the opportunity to do better, to create better, and leave kind of a more permanent and lasting legacy for the next person and for that next generation, which is, I think, very inspiring. And I think that all builds up to what Kat had said in the beginning, is that funding that cultural currency, whether that's a cultural currency within ourselves, which is kind of an investment of that knowledge and experience into our own selves, so that we may be transformed and that we can give back in many ways. We have about 10 minutes left on this chat, and before we get into talking about what's next, for each of us, I wanted to open the floor back up to Patrick and see if we have any questions from our group that showed up here. And thank you again for joining this Zoom session. Patrick?
Sure. I was just trying to look at our group here. Philip, do you mind stopping your screen share?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, thank you.
And no, thank all of you for joining us today, and thank all of you for sharing some amazing work that you all do. So I think that does open up the floor to questions, which you could raise your hand, or I think this is a small enough group, you can probably just unmute and speak, or add to the chat. Yeah, Paige.
Hello, everyone. I've enjoyed this very much. It's been a thrill, a vicarious thrill, hearing about what folks are doing. I just wanted to ask a question from the point of view of a board member at Virginia Stage Company. Kind of a general question, what are your feelings about Virginia Stage Company? And what would you like to see on the part of Virginia Stage Company to, add to the mix, add to opportunities, how could we act as a catalyst? I know we've had, wonderful collaborations such as The Tempest, which I loved seeing. But do people have specific ideas that might involve somehow a partnership or moment of cooperation with Virginia Stage Company? That's it.
Does anyone want to respond to that? And if you don't have a specific idea, that's okay too. That's a very big question.
I'll volunteer Vic, because I think he's got such a great artistic talent, and there might be opportunities for designs, having
Also more like an outside person kind of point of view, because I'm not familiar with any most of the work that has been mentioned. So as far as the Virginia Stage Company is concerned, I would like to see more like projects that can be more readily available to the public, because I have not heard much about that until now. And you guys have some great things going on. And I work at a school right now, so that would be nice if schools could, other schools, like I'm at First Colonial High School, and if we can get information about those events, like on a lot of other, give people access to that, I guess that would be very good. More community integration, I guess, or broader like scope of audience. That would be good. People can see.
Dr. Fontaneros, you have your hand up?
I would like to see more, I'm having a menopause moment. I'm sorry, Philip, but there are Filipino operas. It starts with, the word starts with a Z, and I cannot believe, I can't remember the name of the Filipino word, but I would like to see Filipino productions even coming from like the Philippines, somehow how they could be integrated. It would help them to sort of spread the word about, you know, what they do. And if, you know, our local Filipino artists, our children, performers could be incorporated, you know, and things like that. Doing the Tempest was amazing. It really opened up a lot of our eyes to, and we were so honored to be included. And, you know, people still ask, Filipinos in Shakespeare, what? It was fun for the kids. It was fun for our community to have those unique, the unique interactions and to be integrated in those types of productions. But there are maybe even including some of the performances from the Philippines, shows that they put on, and, you know, inviting them so we can all be part of that. I'll come up with the word in a second.
Your thoughts?
Arlene. Zarzuelas.
Zarzuela. Thank you, Auntie Rosa.
Zarzuelas.
Zarzuela.
Kat, did you have something to add to that?
Yes, just to go along with what Dr. Fontana said, I think that you all did an excellent job with The Tempest, how you took something that is so English in origin and managed to weave in all of these other cultural influences. But if you took maybe a different culture as the base, then I think it might be a different kind of cultural integration experience.
Yes, I agree completely. Thank you for that. Any other questions in our last few minutes? Any other final comments from the panelists?
Yeah, so I think for the last few minutes, maybe we could talk about like what's next. Let's start with Eddie.
Good. There you go. I had to unmute. Sorry. Thanks again, everyone, for tuning in, and thank you, Philip and Patrick, for hosting this. Core Theater Ensemble does have quite a bit coming up. I did want to just go back to the creation of our theater company, because something I just realized was that growing up Filipino, there was always a Saturday evening of getting all the aunties and uncles and families together, bringing something to the table, food-wise. Where, you know, Auntie Irene would bring the lumpia, Tita Ben would bring the lechon, and everyone had their thing that they brought to the table, but the event was the evening. And I realized that's really related to what our theater company is, because the biggest thing within our theater company name is ensemble. So I am only as good as the people that I surround myself with, and we help each other through that. It's I guess that's one thing that's very, very near and dear to my heart, is that I rely on the people in my group, namely Mel and Laura and Nancy. They're the ones that bring me up, and hopefully I reciprocate that. And we've been persevering really for about 14 years, and we do have a lot coming up soon. This year, actually, and it'll be announced very soon in social media that we will be named as Zyder's American Dream Theater out in Virginia Beach Town Center. We are going to be the resident theater company. We actually have a couple of shows that are coming up over there. We're staging No Exit. It's a piece that we did a couple of times, most recently over at the Slover Library last year, 2020, right before pandemic. And also we staged at venue on 35th, but we're bringing it back and we're going to be performing that at Zyder's. Also, we've been helping them out with their Proteus Festival every year. This will be the 4th year that they've done the Proteus Festival, and we are helping each artistic team theater-wise in creating a piece from scratch within a time limit. It's a great program that they have over at Zyder's, and we're really, really lucky to be involved with them. In addition to that, we are looking to have a movement for the actor workshop coming up in the fall. Something that bonded all of us in Core Theater Ensemble was the Suzuki method of actor training and viewpoints training, something that we hold near and dear to our performances. So we're looking to do that workshop sometime in the fall. And in addition to that, we talked about Poe Project. We're hoping to stage that again sometime in October. And we got some ideas for that. But again, thank you. Thank you, Philip and Patrick, for having us.
Thank you, Eddie. And we look forward to seeing all the very cool new shows and the revivals of some of our previous favorites. All right, and Kat, can you tell us a little bit about maybe what's coming up with Keeping It Creepy and the Show Pal Show?
Absolutely. So just going forward, we're continuing to develop more connections, to record more episodes. Now that the world is starting to open up, we're getting booked at some conferences. We'll be speaking at BlurredCon for both of those podcasts, as well as trying to kind of expand our outreach to other people, other POCs, other Filipinos who are interested in our content. Personally, I've got a few writing projects. I'm working on a novel currently that sort of have to do with the Filipino experience. And if I have anything that I kind of wanted to say to walk away from this, it's just that, like, I am Filipino. And so my experience is a Filipino experience. And growing up, we hear from everyone that we're just not white enough. We're not right enough. We're not white enough. And then you get to the point where some people might say that you're not Filipino enough either. And if I spent my whole life worrying about being the one or the other, I'd never be me. And so I am Filipino enough. I am a Filipino writer. I'm a Filipino creator. And so everything I make is Filipino art. And that's all. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Wow, that's a world peace statement right there. I love that. Thank you, Kat. I think that is that concept of I am enough. I think is something hits true and hard for all of us, that we don't have to fight for the scraps because I can scrap too, and we could we can create those opportunities. So I'm putting the link to the Nerds of Color if you want to find the Show Pal Show link on there. It is on there. Vic, what do you have coming up next?
Well, I don't really have any plans for, I don't really have plans for anything for myself, but I'm hoping I could do a lot of more collaboration, probably with Dr. Fontaneras, because she has a lot of brilliant ideas, and I think I could help with that. So, yep, just picking them up as they go.
And you're doing, I understand is you're doing some game modification also?
Yeah, that's just a hobby. It's not nothing special. I'm trying to learn this whole 3D thing because I'm a traditional sculptor. So I've carved rock, wood, anything I can get my hands on. And then apparently materials get expensive and also makes a lot of mess. And my wife doesn't like that. So computer programs and 3D sculpting, that's what I'm trying to learn now, trying to expand my knowledge base. So yeah, there's that.
Well, that's great. So I just dropped a link into onto the website, or to Vic's website on here. And Dr. Fontaneras, I know that kind of kicked off with some events. Can you tell us a bit more about what's coming up?
So our priority at this point is to get our Philippine Cultural Center opened up again, the physical building. So we're looking forward to getting everybody back in there, getting our programs back on track, getting our community back in that building, getting the energy out of them to start, coming up with other ideas, moving forward. We have things like, of course, our Philippine Independence Day, which has been postponed. Hopefully y'all will see that on our social media. So we invite you all to come and join us for that. I would really encourage the other collaborators today, if you have events going on, I'm like in awe that there are these things going on I don't know about, but if you want to share them with us, we are happy to put that on our website, on our social media, to help promote your events. I think it's a great way to keep things centralized, and we help each other, support each other, get everyone out there to be involved. Yeah, so basically opening up the PCC, we revitalized the Little Miss Philippines pageant last February because Filipinos love pageants. And we updated it a little bit. We had 6 beautiful little girls who were vying for the title to the court. They've had an extended reign now since we haven't been able to do another Little Miss Philippines pageant. That would have been this past February. So we are going to be planning that in the future, hopefully the beginning of next year. We are pleased that, so last year, the theme I came up with was a whole new world based on girl empowerment. And of course, we're a very matriarchal society, but it was, empowering our girls to get out there and be strong women. And who'd have thunk a whole new world had a whole different meaning a week after our pageant. But these girls are excited to get out and be our ambassadors. So we're trying to find events for them to be present at and to help share our culture and invite people to come and visit us at PCC.
That's wonderful. I think it's all about that empowerment as well. And it sounds like Glenn or Jem Ron Cadiz says, are there any projects development that would explore Filipino folklore and mythology? Yes, I think there's Tres or Tres on Netflix, and it just came out, and Jem
Trece.
says Trece.
Yep.
And it would be nice to see more diversity and representation on other platforms like theater and stage. I think that is a great opportunity to explore as well. There's a lot to there's as many islands as there are Filipino monsters and gods and goddesses and folklore and tribes. So I think, yeah, that would be that's a great recommendation. Maybe an opportunity, for Virginia Stage Company to do some programming with the PCC, for those storytelling, aspects as well.
I'd like to say something about that. In the Philippines, because I did a lot of murals in the Philippines, and we had a whole folklore mural. I don't know if we can have a venue for that. I think that would be a good idea for the kids to get involved in. If we can have a venue, we can paint it like folklore stories and images. That would be good. Something that they can see and, visit someday in a very Filipino, context. And yeah, like you see them in Trece and this is what they are and whatever.
Mhm. Yeah, maybe that's something that could be explored with the public
Mhm.
works program at Virginia Stage Company. And then so we have Tina, aka Viva Valentina on TikTok. Can you tell us what you have going on other than your year-long wait list?
So continuing with my restoration work. It's been, the way that I have been processing my grief and sharing my story, and building a platform to share, again, my unique Filipino experience. It's also an opportunity for me to share other people's stories through their stuffed animals and through their comfort items. So we're going to be continuing to create those safe spaces and encouraging other people to not only pursue their passions, but pursue their purpose. I feel like I've really found mine, and that's just been empowering and a wonderful ride. So,
And who knows, maybe we might see some Filipino monster cosplay, mythology cosplay,
oh, we've been talking
potentially.
about it. We've been talking about it for a while now, Philip, haven't we?
Yeah. I don't know. That might,
Try
yeah.
things out. I mean,
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So we could probably explore that. And as for me, I'm currently in my art studio here in downtown Norfolk in the Neon District, Arts District. And I currently have several projects coming up and creating costumes. And I have a couple of Comic Cons in the works. And you can find information about what I do in that costume creation world at canvascosplay.com. We're really looking forward to seeing this group at the Earth Remembers premiere later this summer. We really can't wait to see how the Philippine experience is infused in the storytelling of Hampton Roads story. I'm hearing it's like the Hampton Roads version of like In the Heights, Hamilton. So really awesome music and storytelling. So really excited to see that. Thank you all for joining our panels today, and to all of our panelists and people who have joined. Thank you, Patrick Mullins and Virginia Stage Company for this opportunity to share our diverse experiences. And we look forward to seeing you at our next opportunities. Salamat.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Philip.
Thank you.
All of you. Yes.